Hello and welcome to another episode on the Miraculous Being series. I'm your host and self-awareness coach Shweta Shibraman, and this is a show where we discover, learn, and implement lessons from others' life journeys, others who I believe epitomize miraculous in its true spirit. Individuals who live life to the fullest, who worked hard on themselves to reach where they are, and who are passionate in what they do. Today, we have a special speaker, Sushant Kumar. He is the head of marketing at Aakash BYJU and was previously the chief marketing officer at Aakash EduTech. He's led brand marketing for Snapdeal and marketing for Lending Card. He's an alumnus of the Indian Institute of Management, Lucknow, and is also a guest faculty with XLRI Jamshedpur and IIT Delhi. Let's dive in. Hi, Sushant, and welcome to the Miraculous Being show.
Hi Shweta, thanks a lot for inviting me for this show. I've been looking forward to coming here and interacting with your viewers and with you. I'm glad we are finally doing this. I know it's been some time since we've been planning to do this,
Right.
but it's great to be here and hoping to have some nice interaction with you and I hope something good comes out of this.
I'm sure it will. I'm sure it will. So, I think while we all know that you're the marketing whiz, maybe you can share some bit of your journey so that the listeners are up to speed on who Sushant is and where you are today.
Great. So I'm a marketing professional, like many other marketing professionals. My journey has been I've been very interested in the field of communication, and that ended me being at IIM Lucknow. I did my doctorate, and I specialized in consumer behavior. That was something that interested me a lot. And from there, my professional journey as a marketeer began. And that's been what I've been doing for quite some time now. Done that for various organizations. And I would like to believe I've done that successfully. So it continues. That's been what helps me with my bread and butter. But along the way, I discovered something very interesting and something very unique, which was yoga, which was like any other professional. You go through your ups and downs, you go through your journeys, you have successes and failures. There are things you plan to do which don't end up uh, in the same manner as intended, and we all go through those experiences. And there was a point in time I also thought ki chalo, let's do our own thing and become an entrepreneur, and I had an idea, but unfortunately it didn't turn out as intended. At the same so I mean, I was going through perhaps what I can call the worst or the lowest point in my professional life, because I really hadn't experienced failure till then. I mean, till then life was all about ki chalo, let's target this, you end up achieving that. You have to study well to get good grades, so you focus on your studies, you generally enjoy studies, so you end up getting good grades. Consequently, you're told, catch now, if you do well in your college, you'll end up with a good job, a job that you want, and you end up doing. And that's pretty much everybody's story, right? We're told the story since we are born ki padhai karo, number aega, marks aega, you'll get into a good college, a reputed college, you'll find good peers there, then you'll work hard there and you'll get the job that you want. And it pretty much worked the same way for me. um, and At one point, because you've never experienced failure, you don't realize that you can fail as well. So I thought, let's do my own thing, and it started off pretty well, but unfortunately it didn't turn out as intended. So it was a pretty and this is, I think, 7 years back. It was a low point for me. And when you pretty much have nothing to do, you focus on your health and fitness, and that's what I did. Ki chalo abhi ye to the profession is not going well, let's at least focus on the health. And that's when I stumbled upon yoga. uh, I had tried many things. I mean, because I've never had the healthiest of routines. I tried gym a couple of times, walking, running, many other things. So I was like, "Ki nahi, I know I don't want to waste my money paying a high gym membership fee. and you pretty much just pay the fee, go there for a few days, and you never really end up utilizing it. So yoga, I felt कि चलो इसको try करते हैं. It was just exploring like one would explore anything else, and uh, and that's when I started practicing yoga. Actually started practicing yoga with the help of a trainer, and and I was sure that I don't want to go the gym way where you have to go somewhere and train. It'll be better if somebody comes home to me and pushes me to do it regularly. And that's when I started to notice a lot of difference. The difference was not just physically, but even mentally, where you start feeling much lighter, you start feeling more confident. Now you don't know what it is and why it is happening, but you attribute it to the only thing which is new in your life, which is a regular practice of yoga. So I kind of thought, this looks interesting and let's read more about it. And that's how my yoga journey began. The profession continued, and uh, I've also, so it's been quite correlated. Now, one may not know whether one thing has led to the other, but my practice of yoga helped me, better deal with my own self. I think that has played a big role in my professional journey as well. It's not that I'm an extremely successful professional, and there are tons of people who are more successful, but I know that it helps me better manage a lot of things at work, and generally in life altogether, because we spend a lot of time at work. So as a working professional, I think it's helped me a lot, and that has helped me grow, because you're much more you're calmer in more stressful situations, and that plays a big role in in your success or failure professionally. And you know the entire journey of yoga for me, more than practice, also was about the study of yoga. And when I was getting those benefits, I was also trying to understand what this practice is about. And I was very confused because there is tons of stuff on yoga out there. I mean, you would Google yoga, you would find like 20,000 people teaching yoga in their own way. You would find so many schools of thought of yoga, and one begins to wonder what really is yoga. And especially for a layman, I mean, if you've never been exposed to yoga, if you've not had a formal training in it, you would never know what this is about. So I started reading, and I started reading more and more and more. Some of the stuff I read was, to be very honest, very boring. But then I was like, yeah, agar padna hai, samajhna hai what this is about, you have to like really study it like a textbook. And some of it was very interesting. But yes, over the last couple of years, it's been very, very, for me, I mean, I think it's been a blessing that I stumbled upon you. So yeah, that's been my journey into it. I came across a lot of things, a lot of concepts. It helped me, and I literally used to make notes. I still do. So when I'm reading a book, I know it may not be the easiest of reads. So I sit with a notebook. I keep penning down the concepts. So, and I personally feel for a lot of working professionals, uh, a regular practice of yoga can do you a lot good. I know during the pandemic, yoga helped me a lot, and it's not just yoga asanas, the entire practice, including meditation. It helped me a lot. Uh, Pandemic was very difficult for a lot of us. In fact, for most of us, I know a lot of some of my peers during the pandemic, because you kept sitting for long hours, you didn't move a lot. People in their 40s had a heart attack. Some of them even passed away. So I think a lot of that is avoidable. A lot of people had mental breakdowns during that time. They still do. And this is where yoga as a practice can be very, very preventive. It's not that suddenly you have a mental breakdown and you start practicing yoga and it'll be all fine. It's if you do it regularly, it can help you better manage your own emotions, your own thoughts. And there's a very nice saying that you live more in your head than your house. So it's like ensuring the way we keep our houses clean. It's like keeping your mind clean and tidy, so that these corrupt thoughts or thoughts which can take your mind haywire don't come in your way. So that's been yoga for me, and I very very firmly believe that especially working professionals should practice this. Even students, younger folks should practice yoga. And it's quite great because you've had the International Yoga Day, which has started for quite some time now, and there's a lot of awareness about the practice, the benefits. The Indian government is also doing a lot there, and there's a lot more awareness today about this practice and its benefits. And it's heartening to see a lot of people taking to it and doing it very sincerely. So yeah, Shweta, that's been, I think I've kind of gone on longer than
Absolutely not. No, I always love hearing people's stories and how they find, or rather, how yoga finds them. Right? It's always interesting to know the turning points that take us to yoga, and it's very different and very same at the same way. Right? It's
true.
very intriguing for me to hear that. So thank you for sharing that. And I have way too many questions, so we'll go one at a time.
Sure.
So I think the first question that probably I'm curious to know is what you mentioned about the fact that. Uh, most of us have probably been leading very comfortable lives and have not probably encountered failure face to face, right? And when we face it for the first time, it can be quite like a inner earthquake of sorts, because it's not very something that we're familiar with, comfortable with, and something that we've never been braced for, right? Because society is so careful in terms of raising us and protecting us and keeping us safe, that the first time we encounter failure is often the hardest. So curious to know how your journey was and what did failure actually throw up for you?
So you know for me, the the failure or the difficult time was very difficult, because for me, I value my professional life a lot. Now that's how I've been programmed, and there are people who might value other things in life, but something that you value a lot doesn't go the way you plan it to be. It's very disheartening, and especially you try a lot of things, nothing works out. It was also financially very stressful for me because I had a mountain of debt. Now, I had taken that on without really putting much thought onto it, because you are in that phase ki we'll figure out a way, ye to ho jayega, it's not very difficult. So that debt also was like, it gives you another kind of stress. And my health also was not in great shape. So somehow I'd fallen sick. The medications reacted in a way which nobody anticipated, so I was on the bed for almost a month. So it's a point where you just can't do much you really want to do. What you're doing is also not working out, and you realize that, look, man, life is not really in your control. You think that things are in your control, but things really aren't in your control. And that was my biggest learning from that experience. And it kind of got reinforced when I read the theory of or the philosophy of yoga, and a lot more related to it, that everything is temporary. Our existence itself is temporary. There's a fantastic story someone told me, that there was a guy who there was a king who was very unhappy. He went to God. He said, God, help me. I mean, I really am extremely unhappy. So what should I do? I'll need your help. And God said, look, I'll give you one formula. Whenever you are extremely unhappy, open this envelope. And the king had apparently lost a war, and he was not used to losing wars. He had a great army. So God gave him an envelope and said, when you are extremely unhappy and stressed out because of losing this war, by just open this envelope and it'll settle everything. He said, okay, God, also tell me when I'm extremely happy, what do I do? When I win a war, or when I'm able to do good for my people, what do I do? He said, okay, I'll hand you another envelope. Open that envelope when you're extremely happy. So the king was happy. He took the two envelopes, went back, and there was one fine day. Things didn't go as planned, and he was extremely unhappy, stressed out. And so he remembered that, oh, I have the envelope, so let me open this envelope. So he opened the envelope, and there was a message written for him. It's temporary. And the same king, so he was like, ah, this is temporary. Went on to fight another battle. He won. He was very happy. So he again remembered, okay, God had given me another envelope. Let me open the other envelope. I'm very happy. I should know what I should do. And God alone has given me this envelope. So he opened the other envelope. It was again written, it's temporary. And so, a lot of who we are is pretty much, not permanent. It's all temporary. Even our existence is temporary, especially if you look at it scientifically. I mean, the on an average, the life expectancy in India would be 70, 71 years. Across the world, I mean, if you go to a developed country, or let's be very optimistic, let's say the average life expectancy is 100 years. It's been, I mean, in the context of planet Earth itself, it's a tiny fraction, right? So things will continue. Everything is temporary. The happiness is also temporary. The sadness is also temporary. So you should be in a state where, a lot of things should not really affect you. I mean, you might try to do something, might do it, may not do it. We are all here to fulfill our own destinies. We are all here to do what we are meant to do. And there should be nothing, pretty much nothing, that should really affect our inner peace and happiness. And that's something that I discovered and learned upon, especially after reading a lot of the scriptures around yoga. And one of the things that I read were the Yoga Sutras written by Patanjali, and they were broadly, for me, and there are many experts out there when it comes to the Yoga Sutras who might know more than me. But for me, the key takeaway there from the sutras, which pretty much you can call one of the first officially recorded compilation of what truly yoga is that you know the goal of yoga. And there is a lot of misconception around the goal of yoga. The goal of yoga, I think it's the second sutra, which is Chitta Vritti Nirodha, which is stilling the changing states of mind. That is the ultimate goal of yoga. And of course, then the sage Patanjali goes on to explain the process of reaching there, at least lists those 8 steps, and explains the process. And over centuries, people have elaborated more on each of these steps. But that has been the ultimate takeaway, because ultimately you need to still the mind. um, and the mind would decide whether you're happy or unhappy. And it is about stilling the mind and experiencing your true self. And if you can still the mind, it'll help you, it'll help you focus better on things that matter. Ultimately, it's the lack of focus and discipline which does terrible things to us. So if you're focused, you're disciplined, um, it's going to do wonders to you. And focus begins with the mind. All the actions that happen before we really do an action, the thought of doing something is where the action has happened. So yeah, that's been my takeaway from this, that A failure is impermanent, and similarly, a success is also impermanent. And the more you read about the scriptures, the more you'll realize that everything is. I mean, whatever we're pretty much doing is uh, is all impermanent. So one might assume that is there a point in really doing anything at all? But then they'll also tell you, and that's the richness of the scripture, that you need to do your duty as well. You cannot really shy away from doing your duty, which is where karma yoga comes in, and which is where the more you read about the forms of yoga and who you are, and what you need to do, yeah, you get better clarity. I mean, that's where for me the Bhagavad Gita played a big role, because if you read the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, I mean, you would want to just go to the mountains and just meditate and still the mind and reach ultimate, experience your soul and reach the ultimate state of nirvana. But then, okay, if that exists, then there is karma yoga also, right? And you have this beautiful moment in the first chapter where uh, you have Arjuna, who is extremely anxious. I mean, should I fight this? Should I not fight the battle? And these are the anxieties we face in our day-to-day lives when you need to make a decision and you don't know what to do. And we all experience it, which is where again I feel it plays a massive. It can play an extremely transformative and on the positive side role for a lot of people, be it working professionals, be it non-working. I mean, generally, people should do this, learn this, and it'll make a massive difference. It's made a massive difference in my life, the way I look at things. And I know a lot of people I've interacted with who've also reported something very similar. Because the moment you start practicing yoga, you come in touch with a lot of people who are practicing, who've had their own experiences, who had their own journeys. Some of them are incredibly blessed that they started this, in school, in college, and they never had to like really go through a transformative phase in their life to stumble upon yoga. I mean, it just happened to them, and I feel they're incredibly blessed. But I feel even people like me are also incredibly blessed that somewhere, better late than never, you kind of got this access to this incredible thing, and it does wonders. I mean, I've read experiences and accounts of a lot of people across demographics. I mean, you need not be unsuccessful to, I mean, or I mean, yoga will not guarantee you that you will be successful. Yoga will not guarantee that you will not be unsuccessful. I mean, yoga can give you failure as well as success, and they're not correlated. It's just you can better deal with things. You can make more. You can make much. You can fulfill your true potential. I mean, to put it very simply, and that's what it helps you do. So, whatever is your true potential, whatever you are here to fulfill, you should be able to do that. And that's where yoga becomes a very powerful tool. It'll be a shame if somebody who has potential is not able to fulfill it because the mind is playing tricks on the person, and that's where yoga comes in. So that's what I feel is a very very uh, and that's why it is a very very powerful tool.
Absolutely. And I think you beautifully captured what the scriptures do. And I also believe that they literally have the answers to almost everything that we experience in today's turmoil, right? There's almost nothing new that we experience today that probably has not been captured in Arjuna's dilemma or across the scriptures. And uh, like you rightly said, it captures the emotions, it gives you the solution, and it's balancing in a way where you don't lose all hope and faith that is still there in the process as you continue living. But going back to the question on that failure, what you mentioned, that it's all temporary, right? And i'm I'm assuming that this is something that you realized in retrospective, because when we are in that position, we can't probably discern, whether it's temporary or not, because we're so close to it. And when we are that close to it, how do we probably get this perspective? Because when we are that close to it, our mind is going to play the tricks. Our identity of who we thought we were is going to be shattered, our ego is going to get crumbled, fears and securities are going to be coming up. So at that moment, what all played out for you, and how did you find your way back to get to this its temporary perspective?
So for me, Shweta, I'm lucky I got out of that situation. I mean, I was staring into an abyss. I'm lucky to. It's purely lucky. I mean, there's no other reason. I didn't do anything. Neither was I a yoga pro, or uh, I had the right set of people who mentored, guided me, and maybe I would have accumulated some good karma that those people were there in my life. But one of the things I realized was that I don't want to ever put myself in that situation again. And that's where, but you then later on realize that there are bigger challenges that will come in your life. So how do we deal for that, and how do we prepare for that? And why just prepare for the challenges? Just prepare, just be a better person, and have better handle on your thoughts and emotions. Because if you're if you're, there will be problems that will come. You have to solve them, move forward. And some problems might get solved, some may not get solved. Now, one of the things that I uh, read, and I believe also in, is that fundamentally a lot of uh, solving, or especially moving out of a situation where the mind is playing tricks on you. And it's a conundrum, right? Because you have to still the mind, but you have to tell the mind to still itself. And so how do you really get a control of this? And the first thing is being aware. And that is the solution. Because if you're unaware, then, or let's say if you're getting angry, an angry mind is angry, but you just need to be aware that yes, that anger is coming in me and I need to control it. Or if you're extremely happy, and you need to be aware that you really don't you know outdo yourself in that state of extreme happiness or bliss. So uh, which is where the philosophy comes in, that uh, you know s- there are three aspects to ourself, which is where the gunas come in, right? There is a sattva guna in us, there is a rajas guna in us, and there is a tamas guna in us. And if you and all of us are have it's like red, green, and blue, and the entire, you can make any color out of these three. And all of us have these traits. Some of some of these traits are higher, some of these traits are lower, and these traits come out at different times. And what do I mean by sattva, rajas, and tamas? Now think of it this way before we get into that. Is that there are kids who are born gifted, right? Somebody really loves and understands mathematics, whereas somebody just doesn't get mathematics, right? And that's because of an inherent quality they were born with. Somebody is extremely a gifted singer, somebody is an extremely gifted designer, you know understands design and aesthetic. So we are all born with certain qualities, and we are all born with a mixture of sattva, rajas, and tamas quality. Tamas is the least favorable of all qualities, as defined. I mean, this is not what I am saying, which is fundamentally the inertia in us. Um which is, if I'm hungry, I would binge eat all sorts of junk, get wafers, and that is the tamas quality in me coming out. If I am um, I mean, being lazy is the tamas quality coming out. The other quality is rajas, right? Rajas would be when I'm creating something. I mean, entrepreneurship is a classic example of the rajas guna coming out. You want to create something, you want to build something, and that is the rajas guna. And the third is the sattva guna, which is valued a lot, which is, you know contemplation of what I'm doing. and lucidity, and those are, and yoga fundamentally helps you increase the sattva guna in you. It is already present in all of us. Some people find it easier because they were born with a higher share of sattva guna. Some people find it very difficult who have a higher share of tamas. As kids, we all knew, look, there is an exam coming, we need to study for the exam, and it's a good thing to study for the exam, and you should not watch TV. Yet you would watch television, or yet today, I mean, kids would watch Netflix or be on their phones. You know that is not good for you. It's not that you don't know, but you're somewhere addicted to it. So addiction part of it is all tamas. So if you can reduce the tamas component or increase the sattva component, you can make better calls on what you need to do. So the awareness that this is the tamas coming in, or like you mentioned, when you're in that moment, how do you decide? It comes from better awareness of yourself. Now you need to train yourself to be better aware of yourself, and that's been my understanding and my takeaway. Because you would talk to somebody else, they might have a different takeaway, but my understanding so far, to put it very simply, is that it begins with awareness, but how do you build or train yourself to have that kind of awareness? And that comes from a very regular practice of yoga. Even I am not very regular, and there are times when I'm not very regular. There's a lot of work, I'm somehow not able to manage my time well, and I know during those times I'm not my best. So I have to reset things. Before we began this discussion, I was telling you, generally pre-winter, post-winter, I go for my retreat, a 3 or 4 day thing where I'm able to reset my mind and body and the entire thing. But yes, if you do this regularly, there's nothing on this planet that can stop you. Whatever you want to do, you will end up doing it. For someone like me, my primary goal is to make sure that I'm regular with it, and that is the ultimate thing. Because if you're regular with it, good things will follow. And if you read the Yoga Sutras, also there's one full section on the magical powers that you get. While it's not completely science backed, but the magical powers are the powers. If you look at it from a scientific way, these are the powers that are coming by simply programming or reprogramming your mind. So yeah, I mean, that's how you can better control yourself.
Absolutely. And I also believe in something similar. I think you train yourself in good times so that in bad times, the practice keeps you resilient. And because yoga, I think, is very subtle. When you get on the mat and you get out, nothing really transforms, right? It's not like weightlifting where suddenly you have biceps to show
Right.
and you can curl and do all of that.
True.
But I think it really flexes our mental muscles in a big way. Whatever kind of practice you have, right? Asana, pranayama, meditation, any form of practice, I think, in a way, really uh, strengthens our mind in a way to act that you're able to function without any, what we say, that samatvam yoga uchyate, right? That you're able to act equanimously no matter what the circumstances around you is. Even if you're caught in the eye of the storm, there is that distance that you're able to create and say what you said, right? It's temporary. All we need is that insight at that moment in time. But getting to that insight at that moment in time, I think, is a lifetime or many lifetimes worth of practice to actually get to that stage. But
Very true. Very true.
yeah.
In fact, there's an analogy I have for this, is that all the, like you mentioned, right, the eye of the storm. Typically, aeroplanes go to the cruising altitude where there's no atmosphere. I mean,
Mhm.
it's you're cruising because all the weather happens at an
Down.
altitude below that.
Yeah,
And a regular practice of yoga helps you reach to the cruising altitude
I like
where
that.
it doesn't matter whether it's raining, there's a storm below, because you're always above the weather systems altogether. So there could be a storm below, yet you are cruising at an altitude which is much higher, and it doesn't affect you.
I like that analogy. Makes sense, yeah. Um, yeah, interesting. And I think going back to the point where you said that, this is something probably all working professionals must have in their daily routines and rituals. And like you rightly said, everybody is probably in that chase for time, right? Everybody is busy. There are multiple priorities as you grow up. How do you really prioritize something like yoga?
Yeah, it's difficult. I mean, you want to prioritize your practice. You want to prioritize, you know, something which is for your own well-being, and it's a bit difficult because you suddenly put yourself in the shoes of a working professional. You know, they have kids. You have to wake up, make sure things are, on time. The kids go to the school, then you go to your work. Work is stressful. You come back home, uh, and again you have to spend time with your family. Where do you really find time for yourself? And you have to really, I mean, this is something that people need to figure out for themselves. Nobody can figure this out for them. So um, it ultimately boils down to the individual. So it depends on what you want to prioritize, how much you want to prioritize it. And that's a very important point that you mentioned, because ultimately it boils down to priorities. You can, if you prioritize something else over the other, I mean, it's a bit difficult. But again, there I feel there are things which, because yoga is not just asana. Let's get into the karma yoga side of things. I mean, if you're completely focused on what you're doing, uh, that itself is like meditation. I mean, if you are a software programmer just into programming, or trying to focus on mastering the skill, or somebody trying to master their craft, that itself is yoga. It is not just restricted to doing a pose or a breathing exercise, or meditating. So that itself is yoga. And if you can find your work, uh, or you can get absorbed in your work, that itself is yoga, because you're focused, or you achieve a state of flow there. I mean, for me, somebody in karma yoga is fundamentally someone achieving a state of flow when they are doing their work, because when you're in it, you're just trying to master whatever you're doing. So everything around you just stops affecting you, to a point that you would even lose track of time. You're so absorbed in what you're doing, and that itself is karma yoga, in a very simple form. I mean, uh, doing your duty without really, and trying to do your duty to the best of your ability, without really focusing or being too bothered about the outcomes. I mean, if and I often think of it, like, Sachin Tendulkar would never have thought about, I need to score 20,000 runs or 15,000. I really don't know how many he scored, but he always would have thought about, how do I master my skill and be perfect at my game. The Everything else just happened because of that, right? So the moment he would be playing, or when Picasso would be drawing his masterpiece, he wouldn't have thought about, okay, this needs to be a famous painting. He was just focused on what he was doing. And that is, and which is why, some of these so a lot of these athletes, they tend to um, really manifest a lot of karma yoga coming out. I mean, be it a Roger Federer, or be it an Usain Bolt for that matter. When they are in their craft, they are just in their craft, their sport, and they've mastered it to a level where, when they are mastering it, or when they are delivering it, they're just in it. There's The world does not exist for them at that point. So you can do it with your work as well, or you can find uh, devotion to be your thing. So it really depends on what is your thing. I mean, it's very different, and it's again dependent on the gunas you were born with. Now, everybody cannot be an athlete, everybody cannot be an artist. uh, a Kailash Satyarthi is a karma yogi in his own right, right? He's not a he's not an athlete or an entrepreneur or anybody else. I mean, he just did his work to the best of his abilities for a cause he believed in. And so yes, we I mean we are all. And I'm taking these names because people know them, but a tailor doing his job with his dedication, full dedication, is a karma yogi. I mean, you really don't need media to put the spotlight on you to be a karma yogi. That's the curse of our generation, right? I mean, you need uh, so whatever gets showcased as a success by the media is a success, and rest of everything is not. And everybody then tries to run after that and forget what they are actually doing. So yeah, I mean that itself can help you,
Yeah.
but prioritization is a challenge. I mean, I've as a lesser mortal, it's been a big challenge for me. It continues to be, but then it's like it's like a pendulum, right? When you go on an extreme to one end, you automatically have to come back.
Yeah. I was reminded of one of the things that my teachers had said, one of them who said that yoga is the discipline of now. He said, do asanas, keep the mat, don't keep the mat, I don't care. But it's yoga is a practice 24/7, wherein all your attention should be focused in the now. It's the discipline of actually coming to that present moment, that's here and now, and really keeping your attention to what you're doing at this very moment, right? So even as you and I are having this conversation, we can be practicing yoga if all our presence and involvement is actually here. So, but I think that's easier
Definitely.
said than done, lesser mortals. So I
True.
think it's
Very
a
true.
hard journey to actually bring in, especially because, like you said, we all have inherent tendencies, we all have compulsiveness that we are probably born with and carry for uh, many lifetimes, that it's harder for us to actually let go of them. So I guess it's a journey towards bringing that attention to here and now. And I like how you said that, the prioritization really depends on the person in terms of how do you really want to make this happen, whether you want to make this happen or not. I think that's the first question. And if you do, how do you really make it happen? And somehow I think it's also a evolving process, right? I'm sure what probably worked for you 2 years ago to do the practice is not probably the same anymore. So it's something that we probably have to evolve as we go along the journey of life.
Very true. Very true. And it's about, and it gets better. I mean, because you are over the course of the practice better understanding yourself. So it only gets better. It it never goes down.
No, it does go down. I've had experiences where it does go down, where I think you reach a stage where you think you no longer need to practice, and you lower your practice time and think you're better than that, and the compulsiveness comes back. So I've had that phase. It does go bad. That's the reason why I think the scriptures have always said, do your practice, right? You shut up and do your practice. You see benefits, you do your practice. You don't see benefits, you still do your practice, right? Don't get smart and in the head and think that, oh, I understand this process now and let me figure my way out. But
Maybe I'm being very optimistic that it only gets better.
yeah. But I think maybe in a way, what you're saying is that, coming back to your practice is much more easier because maybe you've seen some value out of it. And I think that is one of the difficult challenges in yoga because there's no tangible benefit. So unless you really are conscious and are reflecting on a regular basis, you probably won't notice the subtleties through which that transformation is happening. And it is also the other way around, right? Because a lot of what you do in terms of spreading awareness or evangelizing is about how yoga improves mental health. And so, one of the perils of mental health is that you probably don't notice signs until it goes really bad. And by that time, probably things are harder to turn around. So, how would you say that people can actually be more cognizant and aware of their mental health at any given point in time so that they can stop themselves from going all the way down?
So mental health is actually a very very important subject, a very sensitive subject as well. how I have interpreted the practice, and I would want to stress on how I have interpreted the practice because there are lots of people today who are talking a lot of things which I don't think are true. And they are you know passing the information as the right information. So let me like put a disclaimer that this is how I have interpreted the practice. Is that it helps you strengthen your mind and be more cognizant of the thoughts which might be detrimental to your mental well-being. And uh, and again, we live in our minds more than our houses, so it's largely our perceptions of reality that dictate the actual reality in our head. So it's how we perceive reality. Somebody might think, hey, I am very poor, I don't have money, might be earning 10-20 lakhs per annum. Or somebody might feel they're very rich because they might be earning 3 or 4 lakhs per annum. But that's how they are perceiving reality. And actual reality is very different. If you look at it like very objectively, person who might be earning 20 lakhs a year is earning more than a person who's earning 4 lakhs a year. But then the person who's earning 4 lakhs a year feels I'm fairly rich because that person might have perhaps seen poverty, might have come out of poverty, might have done well for himself or herself, and brought their family to a level where they can live respectfully and can get all the conveniences that they want. So it's how we perceive things that dictate a lot of our mental well-being. And again, there are people who might be more prone to um, there are some people who are just born um, with a lot of mental strength. I mean, that's who they are, and that's again coming from how we are programmed. But then there are people who, by the virtue of how they have been born and who they are, by the virtue of their experiences, they might be more vulnerable to mental health issues. It could be because of anything. I mean, it could be because that's how they were born with. They're more sensitive to things. They're more receptive, and and it's important for them to, in fact, everybody to keep strengthening this. It's like having a vitamin to strengthen your immune system. I mean, I'm just giving an analogy. A vitamin may not strengthen your immune system, but it's just trying to maintain your balanced diet and everything so that you don't get deficient. The same should be done for the mind, where you are building a wall of strength, uh, or a wall, an impregnable wall, where some of these things can't really affect you or bother you, because it's a downward spiral after that. Because once they get in these thoughts, it's very difficult to get them out. And uh, and so this is where yoga comes in. Can yoga replace a therapist? No, it cannot. So it should not be construed as an alternative therapy or anything of that sort. It's just a way for you to better strengthen your mind. And fundamentally, if you look at the WHO definition of mental health and mental well-being, it's a state where you are able to I mean, I don't remember the exact definition, but it's a state where you are able to make the most of who you are. I mean, you're able to fulfill your true potential, do your duties properly, and that's what they essentially say. And uh, and that is mental well-being at the end of the day. And when certain thoughts begin to affect you, you're not able to do your duties in a certain way. Not just duties, it affects everything around you. It affects your relationships, it affects uh, your overall well-being. It can have detrimental, there are a lot of studies, it can have detrimental impact on your physical health, because of poorer mental health. I mean, you might make wrong choices, eat the wrong kind of food, you know, and there are many reasons. I mean, there are many reasons which can lead to uh, poor mental well-being. So where a practice like yoga comes in is that you will be able to be better aware of these things, b be able to better tackle these things, especially a lot of issues that might bother you, affect you, might cause anxiety. So, but it still is not a replacement for therapy. So, uh, if you if you need a therapist or a counselor, my personal recommendation, and I'm not an expert on this, is you know you should go there. If you need a peer group, you should go there. But should you be dependent always, or should you be independent when it comes to tackling these things? Because they will come any given day. They will come without notice, they'll come without warning, they'll come all of a sudden, and that's how life is. So you should be extremely well prepared, and the better prepared you are, the better you will be able to deal with it, the more joyous life will be. So that is what I personally feel is one of the biggest benefits of a regular yogic practice. And you can also go to a guru. In fact, one of the things which is very very important is having a guru. There's a saying, guru bina gyan sambhav nahi hai. So you need to have a guru or a mentor who can make sure that you are regular with your practice, who will guide you to do things the right way. And again, in the scriptures, the role of a guru has been explained, quite well, and the importance of having a guru in the practice. So it's very very important to have one, at least to get initiated. Ensure that you're doing it the right way, and not just watching a YouTube video to get initiated in the practice. It's better. I mean, YouTube, somebody teaching on YouTube can also be a guru. I mean, it's not that it cannot happen that way, but it's still preferable if you find one and get initiated the right way. And but one of the bigger challenges is that there are a lot of people who don't understand the essence of the practice, but are teachers. That's a big problem, that's a big challenge. So that you really can't stop it, I mean.
Thank you for beautifully sharing that. And what my takeaway is that it's regular housekeeping of the mind, right? The regular
Yes.
practice of yoga just makes sure that the contents of the mind are cleaned up, dusted off regularly, so that there is strength when we have difficult times and situations. And absolutely. I think one last question that I'll probably have with you. I know we are on time. If you're okay with us extending just
Yes.
10-15 minutes before we go into the rapid fire, one last question that I had for you is that, like you rightly said today, the more yoga has spread, there is also a lot more misinformation about what the practice of yoga really is. And like you said, everybody has their interpretations of what yoga is, and that's being proliferated in a larger way and probably diluting the essence of what the real teachings are. So, in that world, what would your recommendation be for people who are probably new to this space? How do they navigate and find the right essence as they get along their practice?
So for me, I started with I actually really wandered with multiple textbooks, multiple books, to really get a hang of what this entire spectrum of yoga is. One of the institutions I felt really helped me get initiated, especially on the yoga asana side, is Shivananda Yoga Vedanta Center. They have centers across the world. Similarly, there are multiple other institutions which are age-old institutions who have been training teachers as well as students. A regular yoga teacher will help you get initiated in the practice. One of the things you should look at is, a, are they following, or do they have an understanding of the of the philosophical essence of the practice. Ultimately, it boils down to the practice. So whether or not you know the philosophy or you don't know the philosophy, it's separate. But it boils down to the practice at the end of the day. Now one might be interested in the philosophy or one might not be interested in the philosophy. But if you are interested in the practice, you'll find a good teacher who will ensure that you have a holistic practice which has a strong meditative component. There's pranayam in it, and there are asanas in it. And asanas are not just about physical fitness. There's a lot more even to the asanas than just toning your body. They are about physical fitness, but a lot of people think that it's just about toning your body. I'm very active on the Reddit yoga forum. I think it's one of the biggest yoga forums online, and I regularly come across a lot of misinformation about yoga on that community and that forum, and that gets passed on as the correct information. So for some strange reason, it's people think it's correct, but then you really can't do much. I'll give you an example. One of the basic the premise of yoga asana is it's sthira sukha asana. They are steady comfortable poses. Now it's not about weightlifting or going to the gym and working out and trying to lose weight. uh, you need to do the pose in a steady comfortable manner. Now, that basic premise itself is challenged in a lot of things that happen or get discussed on that forum, and I try to share my point of view as well on the forum. But yeah, it's important to get the right information. Shivananda Yoga Vedanta Center is definitely a credible source because the entire concept of training teachers originated somewhere from the Shivananda Yoga Vedanta Center. There is the younger school, the Bihar school. There are quite a few of them. They're fairly old, credible. They've all originated. The origins of everything boil down to the sutras and the Hatha Yoga Pradipika and so on and so forth, and the Grehant Samhita, and there are tons of these scriptures. But yes, they are popular. They are they are credible. They'll give you the right practice. Ultimately, it's about practice. So the theory, the philosophy is 0.001%. 99.9999% is the practice, and that's something that you should do. An understanding of the theory will enrich your practice, definitely. It'll really add a lot more richness to your practice, but doing the practice is the most important thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for that. I think one of our teachers, when they were explaining Yoga Sutras to us, they said, this is not something up for intellectual debate. And he was like, let's not go there. Instead, try and see if you can actually embody the philosophies that he's talking about, because that's where the true essence is. Because if you can put it to practice in your day to day life, in your day to day chaos, I think that's where the magic lies. And yeah, thank you for sharing that. So, are you ready for the rapid fire?
Yes, I am. It's a first for me. I think I'm not so rapid with the rapid fire. I'll try to be as rapid as I can.
So first thing that comes to your mind, no pauses and no right or wrong answers. Yeah.
Sure.
So let's warm up very quickly in terms of, are you a morning person or a night person?
Night person.
Okay. Punctual or behind schedule?
Punctual when it comes to delivering my work.
Okay. I like that caveat. Okay. Uh, Book, movies, or podcasts?
Movies.
Movies. Okay. What are your top 3 movies?
That's a difficult question.
Or
That's
just
a
one that comes on top of your mind, not 3.
Godfather.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, lovely. Any role models that you've had in your life, and what qualities you look up to in them?
Quite a few of them. Sachin Tendulkar is a role model. Um, I think for people my generation, Sachin Tendulkar will be a role model. Amitabh Bachchan is a role model. Uh, a lot of things, my father is a role model for me. I look up a lot to a lot of people who've, I think, gone about their work. So fundamentally, for me, a role model is a person who just goes about their work sincerely and does things the right way. I really look up to these people. Somehow, there's a growing scarcity of these people.
I can sense that regret in that tone.
Yeah, you see a lot of. I mean, I was reading somewhere we're living in this like the golden age for scams. Uh, so you see a lot of these scams happening. Somehow, I think we need more sincere people
Yeah,
doing well.
right. One word to describe the pandemic for you.
Transformational.
How so?
It questioned a lot of things we took for granted.
Yeah.
I think uh, brought about the impermanence of life. It was always impermanent, but it really brought it out, made it in your face. So I remember. I mean, I know I lost my uncle, uh, and it just happened all of a sudden. We got a call. My mother got a call that her brother had passed away, and it was difficult to find. And this was like peak pandemic. And then I spoke to a cousin of mine that we need to do his last rites. He didn't die of the pandemic, but he just passed away because there's no physical activity. Somebody in their 70s has a heart attack, passes away. And I remember going for his cremation because you need 4 people for that. And I was all decked up with the masks, the head guard, and I don't know what sorts of things you're wearing because you're also scared for your life. You can also contract it. You have to console the family, and you you know during the cremation there was this period, and it was the evening time when the people who had passed away from the pandemic, their bodies come in. So suddenly, you're there, and there are these 6 people who are wearing the full shield, who carry one body on the stretch, and there's another one that comes in, and there's another one comes in, and it's very overwhelming. And yeah, it was. And you go through that, you come back home late. Next morning, you're back to work, sitting in front of your laptop doing the calls. So it can get a bit overwhelming, uh, but it is what it is. You have to somehow convince your parents that it's better if you don't go there. Uh, Somebody has to go, but too many people crowding up is not really good. I mean, it won't help anyone. Neither will it help the government nor us. You're at risk of falling sick. Then once you come back, it's best if you're quarantined. So I was also in quarantine for quite some time. I'm incredibly blessed. I didn't contract it during the peak time, but I know people who went through a very tough patch. So I think it questioned a lot of things we took for granted, and especially for middle class family, a lot of people found their financial safety net just wipe off because one person falls sick, you have to get the person a ventilator, take care of him. All this is fairly costly exercise. So yes, it questioned a lot of things. People lost their jobs as well. Yeah, so it was transformational. It better be transformational because if you don't learn something from something as impactful as the pandemic, uh, I think we all learned it. We all learned it yeah,
I think that's one of those things you can't go back to who you were, right? When you cross that river, you are a different person. You emerge as a different
yes,
person.
you do, definitely you do.
Yeah, beautiful. What is the one thing that you wish you knew when you were younger?
That yoga is amazing. I remember my father. Uh, in fact, my father, his sister, my bua, they're all like proper yoga practitioners. They learned from I'm forgetting his name. He was a very popular yoga practitioner. So they learned yoga back then.
Mm-hmm.
My father's real sister, she also learned yoga. She fell in love with a person who was also into yoga. They got married. So yoga has had a history in my family. So my father, during our summer break, used to take me and my sister for these early morning yoga sessions, and I never used to practice. So I think one thing I wish I knew was doing this much earlier.
Yeah.
So a lot of my understanding would have been far more accelerated, but better late than never.
Yeah, absolutely. I used to be one of those schools too. So we were in an Arya Samaj school and we had yoga, mandatory. But then, as a kid, you don't want anything mandatory. So it was a period of rebel. I, I think I lost you. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. I can hear you.
Perfect. All right. So, what are three non negotiables in your daily routine?
Non-negotiable. One is my morning prayer and meditation. Second is my evening prayer and meditation. Third is sleep.
Ah, I like that.
Sleep is it is a non-negotiable. If on those rare occasions when I feel that I haven't slept my quota, I fill that extra quota the next day. So it is very very critical, and it's a non-negotiable. I mean, what a unless there is like something really but I really don't like the sleep
Mm,
being negotiated on. And sleep is also a big problem with people. I realize these days that they find it difficult to sleep. They don't get a good people don't get a good sleep. They
yeah.
don't get a restful sleep. And the thing with me and sleep is that if I'm sleeping, I'm sleeping. You can to wake me up, you'll have to pour water on me. So that's the only way
Sound.
you can wake me up. But these three things are non-negotiables.
Absolutely, yeah. Okay. And I think if there's someone who's probably listening in who's just embarking on their path of transformation or self transformation, what would your one advice be to them?
Great, you've started, and keep going. So the best part is to get started with it, and the better part is to make sure you sustain what you're doing.
Yeah,
But
that's the hardest.
that is the hardest. But I think once you experience the success of it, like once you get a taste of like it really works, it's very difficult to go back. So you may the tamas might come in, and you might your routine might just go all over the place. But you once you've tasted it, you know it's the nice sweet dish. You would really want to have it again. We all tend to get lazy at times and you're not really feeling high energy, uh, but it works. So whenever I my practice is irregular, I make it a point that there's one day I'll reset everything, and I usually do. So it works very well.
Got it. One favorite yogic practice could be an asana, pranayam, meditative exercise.
So for me, it is there are few of them which I really like to do. One is Om chanting, and it just feels as if you're in a state of trance. The other for me is so in the Shivananda sequence, uh, it's you can make fun out of it as well. Is when you're doing the shavasana, it's actually done in a manner where you you really lose track of your senses, like your
Mhm.
hands and feet. So there's a point when you're waking up from shavasana, and you really can't feel the body. So you have to move each part, and yeah, it's all working fine. There are times you get into deep sleep also when you're doing it. It's happened with me a couple of times, and the instructor has woken me up.
Mhm.
So early morning, you're there, you end your practice with shavasana, and after that, you have to wake up in a particular manner and do your thing. But that particular, it's happened with me a couple of times. I've just gotten into deep sleep. So which you shouldn't, I think you shouldn't get into. But and the third is doing the Surya Namaskar routine. So that it's like a pretty comprehensive,
Mhm.
all encompassing routine, which just do it, and you'll, if you're doing it after a long time, you'll have a lot of soreness the very next day. But yeah, you just don't do the full thing in one go. Now you know that you have to gradually do it if you've not done it for some time.
Yeah.
These are three things which really help, and I like doing these three things.
Beautiful. If there's one takeaway you want audience who probably have been listening to us for the last 1 hour to go with, what will that one thing be?
So the one key takeaway would be, you know, a regular practice of yoga can bring a lot of balance, a lot of harmony, a lot of peace and joy in your life. Uh, Whether you're a working professional, you're an entrepreneur, a student, uh, whoever, you're a homemaker, you're just not doing anything. Let's say you're unemployed. Just start doing this with some faith in whatever has been said by so many people for so many centuries. You will experience the benefits. I have, a lot of other people have. You will definitely experience the benefits, and the experience is it cannot be described. Once you will feel it, you will believe it. That is the one and only takeaway.
Right. Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you, Sushant, so much. Thank you. I think there were so many takeaways for me. And like you said, it was a conversation between two yoga practitioners. And I really enjoyed our conversation. So thank you so much, Sushant, for being here. Uh,
Thanks a lot, Shweta. I'm extremely happy and glad you invited me on this talk, and I hope this adds value to anybody who's listened to us for a full 1 hour and given their time. And I hope yoga brings a lot of joy, happiness, and harmony into everyone's life, and especially all your viewers who tuned into this particular show, this podcast. Thanks again, Shweta.
Thank you, Sushant. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.